veteran broadcaster Chris Wallace is leaving CNN after just 3 years there. This announcement comes as his CNN weekend program, The Chris Wallace Show, averaged below 600,000 total viewers during the election year.
CNN CEO Mark Thompson called Wallace one of the most respected political journalists in the business. Wallace jumped over to the network after leaving Fox News, where he anchored for 18 years. Per Fox News Digital, Wallace did not accept CNN's offer to extend his contract, and according to the Daily Beast, which first reported the story, the 77-year-old plans to remain in the business, but he's going independent, the independent podcast route.
Well. This is interesting. So Chris Wallace left Fox News several years ago, joined CNN. He'd had some friction with Tucker Carlson, with the direction of the network. He was someone who was always pretty, I would say, centrist, or even, I think, by the end, a little bit more combative with the Republican Party than he even was with the Democratic Party. He made himself no fans and allies among conservative viewers at Fox. And so CNN seemed a more natural home for him, although there are fewer viewers there overall, so he was not happy with the success. Obviously, the digital platform he was briefly involved with was a huge debacle, disaster. I know people who worked there and left that thing thinking, oh my God, what a mess was that.
Yeah. Horrible rollout.
So yeah, it didn't quite work out for him there, and it's interesting. He's correct. I think that a lot of independent media, podcasts, et cetera, he sees the impact they had on this last presidential cycle, how Donald Trump was able to use that effectively. That's something we've talked about a lot today. See my radar if you haven't caught it to a further discussion of that. But here's the thing. It is difficult for people to just suddenly say, I think it's harder than a lot of them think, to go, I'm going the independent route, I'm starting my own podcast, I'm going to be an alternative media person, I'm going to be on social media, I'm just going to do it. You have to fundamentally understand this ecosystem in order to thrive in it. And I say that as someone who, when we're kind of part of this ecosystem, even though we're working for a major media organization, our platform is YouTube. We have a lot of guests from the alternative media space. I think we speak to those issues. I did not understand this whatsoever. When I started hosting Rising 4 years ago now,
right.
I did not get my news primarily from YouTube. I got it from cable news and from reading newspapers and magazines. So I didn't understand that ecosystem. I don't know if Chris Wallace does or not, but it doesn't come naturally to you.
I'm going to guess no. I'm going to say 77-year-old Chris Wallace, whose father was also an icon, Mike Wallace.
I think you might be right about that,
Probably
Nomiki.
does not listen to, he sees Joe Rogan, he's like, I can do that better. Yeah, he actually probably could do it better than Joe Rogan. But that's not the point, as we know. It's a universe that is going to be completely foreign to him, and he is a straight news reporter. I mean, when I used to do a ton of Fox News, I was on twice a day. And at the time, that was when they had a news side. There still is a separation.
They still have a news side.
But it was a very, very stark separation. You had Shepard Smith, who was on the news side. You had Chris Wallace on the news side. Even Bret Baier was, I think, a little bit more newsy back then.
Actually, honestly, I think their division between news and opinion is stricter than CNN or MSNBC, right? Bret Baier is anchoring the 6 p.m. hour. That's a news hour. And then next up is Laura Ingraham and Jesse Waters, and those are opinion hours,
Agreed.
right? It's a hard line. And the two don't intermingle very often.
They don't, but it's less so from the days of Roger Ailes. Roger Ailes actually, oh my God, I can't believe I'm defending him, but he actually protected the news side more. He had a notable friendship for years with Shepard Smith. He was one of the first hires at Fox, and before I think he worked with him at CNBC, if I'm correct. So he's been part of an institution, a different era of the news world, and CNN is becoming a little bit more gossip. I mean, it has over the years, especially under Jeff Zucker. It was becoming much more gossipy, and put him in the ring and have him fight it out. And he's not that guy.
My point being, I can point to the people who host, who are personalities at Fox, and tell you, it's very clear whether that's a news person or that's an opinion person. I think it's actually less clear at CNN and MSNBC.
I don't disagree.
And this is not just to bash CNN. Frankly, this is going to surprise our viewers, I've actually found a lot of CNN segments to be quite interesting lately. I don't know if that's solely due to the increasing prominence of Scott Jennings, who is by far my favorite conservative commentator on TV. He's wonderful, he's effective, he's doing such a good job. But they have tried to invite in different perspectives, and they're actually platforming a lot of arguments. Maybe they're taking a page out of our own book. Maybe they watch some Rising and say, hey, we need a little bit of that action, and that's what they have going on. MSNBC is not doing any of that. It's just a grieving session for.
Oh, it's totally a grieving
liberal
session. I tuned in
women.
last night, and Nicole Wallace was having a moment. I think what's going to be the challenge for Chris Wallace is getting out of the news mindset, because if he's going to be a YouTube host, he's got to have an opinion, a very strong opinion. If he's going to be a regular podcaster, okay, maybe he can have really interesting interviews and back and forths with notable people. There's more of an audience on the audio side for that. Is it going to be a TikToker? I'm just so curious. What
you also have to. You're right. This makes me think of something. You also, if you're doing a podcast or a long form format, you have to kind of show your personality a little bit. I mean, we sometimes share anecdotes about what's going on in our personal lives or what we think about entertainment, just because we fill time and it's interesting, and the viewers seem to appreciate that. He is Bill is such a straight news reporter. Don't get involved. The point of the interview is to grill the subject, and his view is coming from nowhere, is almost like an omniscient.
Right.
He doesn't get involved, which is very much the old newsman style that does not work in these podcast alternative media formats. It very much has to do with the attitudes, the background, the personality of the hosts.
Banter.
And he's not the banter, and he's just not really. I don't know. He doesn't involve himself that way.
You don't think Chris Wallace is going to say, Robby, tell me about your childhood. What really got to you? I mean, even Barbara Walters actually did that sometimes. And she probably would have been great in the podcast space.
I mean, is Chris Wallace going to interrupt a segment or derail a segment to talk about, like, what he's been watching on TV recently? I can't imagine. I can't picture him doing that. And that's kind of what you have to do.
I know nothing
right,
about Chris Wallace other than his father.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. I know Chris Wallace, Fox. I know the man. I've met him before. I've been on his shows before. I can't tell you anything about him other than his father was Mike Wallace and he was on Fox News.
Well, I know CNN has been having some financial difficulties. There was reporting on its top talent, who's safe, who's not. Contracts are being renegotiated where they're telling people we're actually not going to pay you as much.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was the deal for. I think in the statement they said they wanted to retain him, but it could just be they didn't offer him enough money to stay. They wanted him to stay, but they were going to pay him less.
I'll take his job.
I read a report that I think like
CNN, if you want me, I'll take it.
Yeah. I will do it for way less than him.
I could be serious.
And I'll show personality and
or not. I can do whatever you want, CNN. As long as I'm not a right winger. That's all I care about.
All right.
You can get two of us for the price of a Wallace.
I'm not offering to go. And I love my job. I'm not.
No, and we'll be here.
Oh, and do another.
That's what I didn't get.
I can't host a third and a fourth and a fifth show.
Why couldn't he just do a podcast on the side with his? Well, he's 77. That's probably why. It's too much work.
We will be paying attention to whatever he does, I'm sure, and commenting on it. Lots more to talk about. Wallace Watch. Well, that's not a bad idea.
What's he up to?
More to come on Rising Still. Please stay with us.